Hello, welcome back to another episode of Nobody is Doing It Right, the podcast for those who are uncertain. My name is Kat. I am your host. I am a writer, digital creator, self-awareness guide. I do a little bit of everything. And today's episode is one that I think is very important to talk about. I made a video about it on TikTok that kind of blew up this last week. Not blew up, but did pretty well, and resonated with a lot of people. And I was getting a lot of requests to dive a little bit deeper into this topic and explore it a little bit more. So that's what we're going to do in this episode. But before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping, I guess. If you're interested in reading my long form articles about topics like these, kind of more personal essays, creative nonfiction, which I love writing and I'm trying to focus on a bit more throughout 2023. I neglected doing this, even though writing is my passion. I neglected it in 2022, so I'm going to be doing that for the rest of the year. If you want to read those, I have a membership that you can join. It's called The Uncertain Collective, and you can access all the articles that I write every week and also any archive. So if you sign up, halfway through the year, you'll get access to all the articles I've written before. And also I offer one-to-one call sessions if you're interested in talking about these topics in more detail and you have a specific thing you want to discuss with me or you want my thoughts on something. Feel free to book in with me. You can find all of that stuff over on my website. So let's get into this topic. This is something that I thought of when I was on my walk the other day. I was told in the video that this line was also in Jay Shetty's book. I haven't read that book, but I'm happy to know that I'm on the same page as him because I do value the work that he does online. But this is something that came to me like literally when I was walking, because I love walking and that's how I process most of my thoughts and my feelings and when most of my ideas for content come to me. But I was on a walk and just thinking about, judgment and feeling unworthy, self-worth struggles, especially because I am now on this journey of allowing things to just flow as they need to. I'm allowing myself to meet more people, whether that's like with the intention of dating or the intention of friendship. I'm allowing myself to just do that and let myself be seen, which is the concept of being seen is a topic I wrote about last week for the Uncertain Collective. So if you want to read more about that, you can. But I'm letting myself do that. And of course, when you open yourself up to being seen by people, there's a lot of insecurity that comes along with that. If you feel like you are unworthy of being seen, or you've been conditioned to believe throughout your life that you don't deserve to be seen, or your core self, your true self behind your facade is not worthy or good enough. All those things will come up to the surface when you start thinking about, okay, I'm going to go out and meet new people, right? So I was thinking about this on my walk, and the realization that came to me was that it's not about what other people think about you. It's about what you think about what they think about you. So let's get into what that means, even though I'm sure, it's pretty understandable just by that sentence. I love pithy one-liners that kind of like really hit home. And that's kind of what I'm doing a bit more on my TikTok right now because it seems to resonate with people. But I was realizing like, it's not really about what other people think about me because their belief about me is not going to affect how I live my life, how I experience life, right? The only thing that's affecting how I live my life based around their perception of me is what I think about what they're thinking about me. If I take what they think about me to heart, if I start acting in ways because of what I think they think about me or what they think about me, right? Say someone said something about me to me, what I think about what they said. If I take it seriously, if I'm like, yeah, that's true, or if I disregard it because who are you to tell me that, right? What you believe about that, what you think about what these people think about you is what's going to dictate the way your life unfolds, right? And that's something that obviously like this is not something new. The things I talk about aren't super huge revelations. They're just things that I've learned from my own experience, but that other just humans in general learn at some point. And I'm just sharing it in my specific way, the way that it's really resonated with me in my mind, the way it's really sitting with me and how it's clicked into place for me. This is how I've realized that everything that I worry about when it comes to how I'm being perceived has almost nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with the way that I perceive how I'm being perceived. I am the watcher of my watchers in a way. And when I realized this, I was like, oh yeah, like it doesn't matter. And I know everyone says that it doesn't matter what people think about you. Don't worry about what people think about you. But when I've put it into frame in this specific way for myself, I understood it a little bit more. All of this is in my control. All of it is, right? This is in your control too, right? Not everything in life is in your control, of course. There are external circumstances that happen, that just happen. But things like this is all a perception. This is all in your control. You decide how you perceive or feel about something that someone else is doing. Because if you decided today that this person who might be thinking this thing about you or has specific views about things and you don't align with what their views or their ideals are, if you decide, well, but it doesn't really matter because, they are also flawed in this specific way, all of a sudden now your trajectory in life changes because you aren't going to try and bend and mold yourself to fit this person's ideal, right? Because you are no longer tying your worth to it because it doesn't matter, because you've decided it doesn't matter. But if you decide, actually, this person's opinion actually does matter to me because, they're more aligned with the traditional way of doing things. And therefore, if I fit into what they want, then I will align with the traditional way of doing things, which is acceptance. I'll be accepted by the general belief of what things should look like, the status quo. Then yeah, the trajectory of your life is going to look different because you're going to take that really seriously and attach your sense of self-worth to it, and then you will do things that change the way you show up every day. So yes, your life will be affected by what people think about you, only because you decided to care about what people think about you and move in the direction of what they would want or not want from you. So it's really not about anybody else. It's not. And I don't want to say this as like a self-centered, narcissistic way of looking at things. This is something that I think is very liberating to realize, that you are the conductor of your own misery sometimes. Again, not always. Obviously, there's nuance to this. But sometimes we have to realize, like, we are holding ourselves hostage with things. And again, it's normal and it's understandable because a lot of this is rooted in our childhood trauma, in our wounding. We feel unlovable, unworthy, unacceptable. It's what we were maybe shown a lot as children, and that belief kind of really settled in and stuck with us for so long. So it makes sense that yes, you're going to care a lot about what people think about you because deep down or subconsciously, it's a survival tactic. You're trying to survive in this society and in this world. So this isn't to blame anybody for doing this or shaming anyone for it and being like, oh, you should be better and grow up. You shouldn't be caring what people think about you. No, it's normal. It's understandable. Of course you would, right? But I think and that feeling will always come up too, I want to say. Like, you will always feel that little inkling of, oh, this person's disapproving, or this person could potentially disapprove. But it's when you realize that even if they disapprove, it has nothing to do with me. That's actually not my business. And my business is just what I decide that I care about. And you kind of put your blinders onto that thing and you hyper focus on what it is that you actually care about, that actually, feels good for you. Because again, we're not taught to seek out things that feel good deeply. We're taught to seek out things that either feel bad, to validate these feelings that we are unworthy, or we seek things that feel good superficially and only for a little bit, dopamine hits, distractions, all that stuff. But we're not really taught to seek things that feel genuinely deeply good to our core, like the feeling of love, in a sense, to ourselves, right? We're not taught to seek that out. But when we do that, when we focus on, okay, that perception of me that I'm thinking this person thinks or sees, that doesn't feel deeply good for me. So I'm not going to care about that because I only care about things that feel like love to me, And this is something that's also talked about in the book All About Love, which I'm currently reading, by Bell Hooks. So I think a lot of my realizations about this also stem from what she talks about in those books too, in her book as well, because it all comes down to like the concept of love, this deep feeling of lovefulness within us. And when we decide to chase that feeling for ourselves, we realize that what people think and how their perception of us, which is often rooted in their fear, right? It's a very fear-based thing. If they're judging us because of something, it's not really about us. It's about what they fear within their lives and about themselves, right? That's all projection. It always is. So it has no bearing on us, because if you're chasing the feeling of love, that doesn't align. That has nothing to do with you at that point, right? It's all about them and their fears. Now, there's also moments where you might think or assume that someone's judging you in some way or disapproving of you. And of course, again, it's like a defense mechanism. It's like preparing you to not be rejected or disapproved of. So you're going to assume that they are and try and change yourself. But again, it's not about what they think about it's about what you think that they're thinking about you, right? You're putting that on them now. You're deciding that they're going to disapprove of you. So what does that say to you? How does that make you feel to feel that someone might disapprove of you, right? It's all about you and the way you feel about that. That's going to dictate how you live your life. You're the only one that is in control of the steps you take and the things you do all the time, right? And again, there's always external circumstances that are going to affect how you do things. But when it comes to the perception of these things, the perception of these circumstances, that's on you. That's yours to take control of, which is great. It's like a very liberating thing to realize that even in the most hopeless of times, you still have some control. There's still something that you can do. And that thing that you can do is decide how you perceive it, is decide how you look at it or think what you think about it. And it's so small and it feels like nothing because, the horrible things could happen, right? So to think like, oh, the only control I have is just to decide to not be upset by it or to decide not to care about it, it feels so trivial and silly and stupid. It does. But when you're in it and you kind of, that's the only inkling of hope you might have for yourself, it actually is a very big thing. And it's important that we take that control and hold it close to ourselves and realize that we are the ones that get to decide how we want to feel, right? We are the ones that get to decide if we want to chase a feeling of love for ourselves or a feeling of fear based on other people's fears, right? If we're going to absorb that from them. So yeah, I really wanted to share this because it's easier said than done to just not care about what people think about you because who are they? They don't matter, or, they're just as flawed as you, of course. But it's hard. It's really hard to do that because, again, we live in a society. We are communal creatures. We look to other people for support and validation all the time. But there are some people that don't need to be that source for us. Not everybody has to be that source of approval and validation for us, right? The right people for us will align with us with this feeling of love if that's what you choose to chase, If you choose to chase the feeling of fear, if you choose to worry about what people think about you and care and bend and mold yourself, then those are the people that you're going to see more of, right? Your perception, your eye is going to be opened to those people rather than the people that are allowing you to experience this pleasurable feeling in your life and to dictate the direction of it in that way. So again, it really just comes down to perception. And I hate saying that because it sounds so easy, like, oh, it's so easy, but it's not easy. It's very difficult to shift this mindset and allow yourself to explore what you can do with your perception and how you can change how you see things, right? Like what you decide to put a spotlight on. It takes time, it takes practice to be able to do that. But I wanted to share this in case it resonates with anybody else and it opens your mind up to the potential of allowing yourself to just not care about what people think about you, right? To not, and to recognize that whatever you're feeling right now about somebody judging you or saying something about you, it's really not about what they say. Their words have no bearing on you other than what you decide to do with that, what you decide to feel about that, and how you then decide to act afterwards, right? So yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope this was informative. If you want to follow me on Instagram, that would be great. You can follow me on TikTok. If you want to book a one-to-one call, again, find me on my website. And I would also love a rating or review on this podcast. I'd really appreciate that. I forget to ask about that all the time. And also if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to me. But yeah, other than that, I will be back again next week with another episode.